China's real estate market is facing a very tough time right now. Unexpectedly, the main force of home buyers has united in thought and opinion. They have all decided to stop buying houses. No matter what tricks developers use or how they try to tempt me, I firmly refuse to buy a house. I'm in my 20s and just starting my career. I will not sacrifice 2 or 3 decades of happiness to benefit capital interests. Some people might argue saying, if you don't buy a house, what about your child's education? Well, then I won't get married either. Is that acceptable? I've already spent over a decade in school, then worked hard, and now I have only about 40 years left. Life is short, so why should I pay for houses that are ridiculously priced due to capital speculation? This is what the post-2000 generation is saying now. They have become the biggest adversaries of the real estate market. According to official data released by the Chinese Communist Party, CCP, on June 17th, new home prices in China in May saw the biggest drop in nearly 10 years. This indicates that despite efforts to support the housing market, the real estate industry is still struggling to find a bottom.
I won't buy a house or spend money anymore. If children's education becomes inconvenient, then I just won't get married. I want to see how you capitalists will exploit me in the future. This is the most common comment I've seen from young people. Would you do the same? Have you noticed that a new era is beginning? More and more people have understood this. Foreign countries are like our mirror. Work for half a year, then play for half a year. You can rent a house instead of buying one. As for a car, as long as it works, it doesn't have to be a luxury brand. We are not here to work overtime every day, pay off mortgages, or suffer. We are here to enjoy life and experience living. In the past 3 years, we must have felt the struggle of not having savings. I believe that in the future, most people will strive to save money and won't spend all their earnings each month. The era of living on credit will end, and the time of treating home buying as the only way to make money is over. Spending all your savings and taking on decades of mortgage debt to buy a house is the dumbest thing. People have realized that living well in the present is the most important thing.
People are becoming harder to fool. With the overall job market in poor shape and the value of money in people's hands continually shrinking, it doesn't matter how much you try to convince them to buy houses or offer discounts. If they don't have the money, they won't buy. According to data released by the National Bureau of Statistics of China on June 17th, new home prices fell by 3.9% year-on-year in May, compared to a 3.1% drop in April. The Real Estate Development Prosperity Index for May was 92.01, continuing the downward trend since November last year. China's heavily indebted real estate industry was once a key driver of economic growth. However, since 2021, it has faced multiple crises, including developer debt defaults and stalled construction projects for pre-sold homes. In May, the Chinese government announced a major real estate rescue plan. This included 300 billion yuan in refinancing for affordable housing from the central bank, encouraging local governments to purchase unsold homes, and relaxing mortgage rules to address the real estate crisis. Following this, cities like Shanghai, Shenzhen, and Guangzhou introduced significant easing policies for homebuyers, lowering down payment requirements. However, investors and analysts remain skeptical about the effectiveness of these measures. Projects in several pilot cities are progressing slowly, and an oversupply of housing continues to drag down prices, discouraging real estate investment. Analysts also believe that removing purchasing restrictions in major cities could further dampen enthusiasm in smaller cities. The adjustment in China's real estate market shows no signs of stopping. January 17, 2024, the National Bureau of Statistics revealed data for December 2023 and the whole year. In short, the situation continues to worsen. The data showed that national real estate development investment in 2023 was 11 trillion yuan, a 9.6% decrease from the previous year. Residential investment was 8.4 trillion yuan, down 9.3%. This decline has persisted since turning negative in April 2022. Despite periods of narrowing decline, the overall trend of falling investment remains unchanged. This means that enthusiasm for acquiring land and starting new projects has continuously declined. In the past 2 years, data from the Ministry of Finance on land acquisition and the National Bureau of Statistics on new construction area illustrate this situation clearly. For the first 11 months of 2023, revenue from the sales of state-owned land use rights was 4.2 trillion yuan, a 17.9% decrease, following a 23.2% drop in 2022. Regarding new construction areas, data from the National Bureau of Statistics shows that in 2022, the area of newly started homes was 1.2 billion square meters, down 39.4%, including 881 million square meters of new residential construction, a 39.8% decrease from the previous year. In 2023, the downward trend continued, with the area of newly started housing falling to 953.8 million square meters, a 20.4% decrease, including 692.9 million square meters of new residential construction, down 20.9%. With continuous declines in land sales and new construction areas, some may worry about a potential housing shortage in the coming years, possibly triggering a new round of price increases. Considering the houses built during the rapid urbanization process over the past decade, how large is the inventory? In the 19 years from 2005 to now, there were 13 years where the new construction area exceeded the sales area, while there were 6 years where it was less. From 2005 to the end of November 2023, the total new construction area was 21.9 billion square meters, compared to 20.4 billion square meters of sales, leaving a surplus of 1.5 billion square meters of new construction. If next year's sales area drops to 1 billion, 200 million, or even 800 million square meters, the current inventory could still cover more than a year and a half of sales, even without adding any new houses. This data only reflects the period since 2005. In fact, since the housing reform in 1998, urbanization has boomed, with residential buildings springing up in cities of all sizes across China, leading to a severe oversupply of housing. Experts point out that China has an excess of houses, making further construction unnecessary. Currently, 20% of the population has built 50% of the world's houses. According to the National Bureau of Statistics, in 2023, the sales area of commercial housing was 1.1 billion square meters, down 8.5% from the previous year. Residential sales area decreased by 8.2%. The sales value of commercial housing was 11.7 trillion yuan, down 6.5%, with residential sales value down 6%. Independent TV producer Li Jun noted that house sales have been declining continuously in recent years, with numerous market disruptions. In May, a prime plot of land in Guangzhou's financial city East was withdrawn from auction a day before the sale due to the lack of buyers. A similar thing happened a week later for the World Grand View Phase 4. In early March, Guangzhou listed 22 plots for sale, but only 2 were sold, generating 5.1 billion yuan, whereas annual land sales used to exceed 100 billion yuan. In Shenzhen, only 1 plot has been sold so far this year, earning 5.2 billion yuan for the government. Previously, in Shanghai, the most stable and high-priced luxury homes sold for 40 to 50 million yuan or more, but now prices have dropped by 20 to 30%. In the outskirts of first-tier cities like Qingyuan in Guangzhou, property prices have fallen from 12,000 yuan per square meter to below 5,000 yuan. In Evergrande's Silver Lake City, second-hand house prices have dropped to 2,813 yuan per square meter. In Beijing's Yanjiao, prices have dropped from 35,000 yuan per square meter to 13,000 yuan, and from 24,000 yuan to 8,500 yuan in some areas. The largest decline was in Yongqing, where houses fell from 20,000 yuan to 5,600 yuan, a 71% decrease. In 2017, at the peak of Yanjiao's market, prices reached 40,000 yuan per square meter. Now, many developments in Yanjiao are described as ghost towns with no sign of life. Despite the Chinese government's recent measures to revive the economy and address the severe real estate crisis, people remain uninterested in buying houses.
In Shanghai, prices are too high for us to consider.
Even if mortgage rates are low or interest-free, I won't buy a house because I can't afford it. I'd rather spend my money on travel. Beijing's measures include offering lowering mortgage rates for first-time homebuyers. As of now, though, I still won't consider buying a house. No policy will unlock the pain point and make us want to buy.
But then if the sales continue to decline,
If real estate sales continue to fall and policies don't have a substantial impact, we'll see prices continue to drop.
不买房、不结婚、不生孩子。
Not buying a house, not getting married, and not having children are major expenses for an average person. If you choose to give up, Even as a poor person, you could live a decent life, enjoying food and drink every day. But if you don't have the financial ability to buy a house, get married, or have children, forcing yourself into it will likely lead to a difficult life, potentially worse than a dog's.
According to Guo Jun, editor-in-chief of Epoch Times, a social media author found that China has sold 225 million homes over the past 20 years, with 184 million sold before 2009. About 117 million were sold between 2015 and 2021, with 71 million sold between 2018 and 2021. This means that roughly half of the current real estate holdings were bought during the 6 years of skyrocketing prices, and a third were bought at the peak prices. About 75% of Chinese residents' assets are tied to their homes. If house prices drop by 40%, half of the population will be in negative equity. The people who bought homes after 2018 are the most unfortunate, as they will spend the next 30 years paying mortgages that far exceed the value of their homes. Epoch Times editor Guo Jun said that if housing prices rebound in the next 2 years, it might be slightly better. However, if prices remain at this low level or continue to fall, then these people will suffer greatly. A typical working lifespan in China is from 22 to 52 years old, making many people mortgage slaves for their entire working lives. Unless the government prints a massive amount of money, leading to hyperinflation and a tenfold or hundredfold increase in housing prices, this situation won't change. However, printing such money could lead to an economic collapse. China's middle class, whose wealth largely comes from real estate, is at risk of disappearing due to falling house prices. The country's economy has relied on this middle class, which has the real purchasing power of less than 200 million people. Many of these people became wealthy by speculating on real estate or owning multiple properties. As house prices fall, their willingness to spend decreases, posing a significant risk to China's future economy. The U.S. recently imposed a 100% tariff on Chinese electric vehicles. The EU, Mexico, and other South American and Southeast Asian countries followed with similar moves. This could severely impact China's exports in the second half of the year. With an already struggling real estate market and overall economy, this poses a further threat to China's economic stability. In this situation, China's exports could greatly suffer in the second half of the year. The overall economy is struggling this year, and the real estate sector is in trouble. Other sectors will likely fare even worse. What's the point of producing more goods if there's no demand for them?
Banks are already unable to cope. More people are defaulting on their loans, and the number of non-performing loans is increasing. Everyone has seen the difficult situation over the past few years. Many people are not withholding their mortgage payments because they have money, but because they genuinely don't have the money. Some properties have even dropped below their purchase price, leading to people to give up entirely and abandon their credit, telling the bank they can't pay back.
This is the overcapacity problem that the West has been talking about. The West has suggested that China should rely on its citizens to solve the overcapacity issue, but the Chinese government knows very well that people's incomes are declining, and there are many people unemployed. How can domestic consumption drive the economy in such a situation? The economic data for the second half of the year will likely look very bleak. Economist Tai Shen-kun said that many people are now hoping for a major policy shift at the third plenary session in July. However, if there were a significant policy change, it would have happened already. There's no need to wait for the third plenary session. Recently, at a meeting chaired by President Xi Jinping on deepening system reform, the major policy announced was to further strengthen the party's leadership. How can enterprises develop if you strengthen the party's control? Epoch Times editor Guo Jun stated that the major policy introduced by the CCP is to further strengthen the party's comprehensive leadership, including in private enterprises and even among delivery workers, requiring them to establish party branches. This is a dead end. The real issue is that after this real estate downturn, the centralized economic system that the CCP has worked so hard to establish over the past 2 decades may collapse. China's local debt is currently at 40 trillion yuan, and when including urban investment bonds, local government's total debt is around 100 trillion yuan. The central government cannot handle this burden alone. The only solution is to revert to the approach used by former Premier Li Keqiang. Each locality manages its own debt, effectively decentralizing power to the local governments. Central coordination of local economies has failed, and fiscal collapse has left the central government unable to influence local economic development. Therefore, Beijing is gradually transferring power to local governments, a forced major concession from the central government. This is a result of internal policy struggles at all levels of government. In the 1980s, China's reform allowed local governments to manage their own finances through the household responsibility system in rural areas. Beijing now faces a similar situation. To resolve local fiscal issues, the central government, lacking sufficient funds, can only delegate power to local governments. This decentralization may be irreversible. If Beijing attempts to reclaim this power, it would likely involve transitioning to a wartime economy, which is the only way to forcibly unify resources. The Chinese authorities may appear foolish or irrational, but this could be a strategic move to shift the entire system into a wartime footing. Achieving a wartime economy would allow China to exert global pressure and unify domestic resources. However, this shift would ultimately bring hardship to the Chinese people.